Well, we are back. I'm happy, David, because I want to say I've been consistent with my weekly podcast, but I have not. But I'm excited now because, like I was telling you, I'm working on, I've got a guest lineup. I've got a 100 people that I'll be inviting over the next year, 2 years to help me to produce good content for the podcast, The Fighting Networker. And David, you're one of them. Dr. David Casper, PhD, and just an amazing guy I've known for about, I think, 6 months to or a year or so on Facebook. We've been Facebook friends, right? And I sent David out an invitation, and he accepted to support what the Fighting Networker is all about. And up to this point, I think we have, I don't know, I think there's like 15 episodes or 17 episodes. I have a couple other guests. David, you're actually my third or fourth guest on the Fighting Networker. And you know that I've been in network marketing more than half my life. And I know that you're a high performance coach. And so that's what attracted me to you when I saw you on Facebook, you know. And I know you've been watching me and I've been watching you, so I appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited to be here, and it sounds like you have an exciting few months ahead.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a challenging thing when you're from the original school, whenever you're taking on a project like this, because you have to learn what platforms work best. Like this is being recorded on a Zoom platform, and we'll see how the sound comes out when I put it up on the podcast. And I'll also repurpose some of this stuff here for my YouTube channel, which is also this content will help with my YouTube channel as well. So I appreciate you coming here and letting us record. And over the weekend, I thought, okay, I've got to come up with some good stuff, a handful of questions, because we don't go more than 20 minutes. In the long run, we might stretch it to 30 minutes, but I like to keep it around 20 minutes. And but I've got some questions I want to take you through. Sure. And feel free, you know, you go as long as you want, reality is. But could you, David, could you provide to our listeners a brief overview of what high performance Stoicism is all about and how it relates to personal and professional growth? Can you talk about that?
Well, I think in the broadest sense of personal development, it's a personal development program. And so there are a couple things that make it somewhat different than other programs. And it has Stoicism as a foundation. So Stoicism is an ancient philosophy, and the supreme good for the Stoics is developing your soul, your psyche, to its most excellent state. And when I tell you, and so what they call that virtue. And there are 4 primary virtues: and prudence, courage, self-control, and justice. And just a couple of those, if you think about it, everybody needs these to succeed in life, to be a outstanding entrepreneur, and also for to have a great life outside of work. And they are self-control and courage. So the Stoic view is very interesting about this point, because they say these virtues are within us in seed form. And we know that because when we really have to use self-control, it's there. When there's a situation that calls for courage, people will sometimes surprise themselves by doing the courageous thing. So the big challenge in today's world is to develop these character traits, these psychological traits, so that you start moving in the direction of success, and you move away from self-sabotage, from victimhood, from all the things that plague many people in business and many entrepreneurs today. So that's a short version of it. And I just want to say that the high performance part of it is, when we talk about personal development, you can just make some changes and have greater success in life. But people that want to be involved in a high performance program, they want to do something that's extremely outstanding at the top of their field. And so that's the distinguishing mark of a high performance program.
And I might be wrong. You're from New York, New York?
Yes, I was born there, grew up in New Jersey, and I've moved to a couple different places, but I am living in New Jersey now.
And where did this mindset come from? Did you develop this? Did you have a great teacher? Was it in school or in your upbringing?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because as a professional philosopher for a couple of decades, there's a general skepticism about personal development because you see things like visualization or affirmations where somebody's smoking a cigarette and they're supposed to tell themselves, I'm not a smoker, I'm not a smoker, and things like that. So I came to the area with a good deal of skepticism, even though in personal development in the broadest sense, that's one of the big things you do study in philosophy, especially in ethics, and which is my area of expertise. But you learn about being courageous, you learn about being prudent from Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and the Stoics. So for a while, I was definitely living in two worlds. But what happened was several years ago, after doing a lot of research, also a lot of research into psychology, especially performance psychology, where they study what makes elite athletes like a Michael Phelps or Michael Jordan continue to succeed year after year, event after event. And so that's actually a discipline in psychology. After studying all these things, I wanted to create my own program. So I just started putting together the things that I thought were the best principles and practices to help people to become a high performer. And at the same time, I started getting more into studying Stoicism quite deeply. And a curious thing happened. I started to look at my own outline of how to be a high performer, and I started to see, oh, the Stoics have that. Oh, the Stoics have this. And then at some point, I just realized, oh no, I think my program is actually Stoicism. So that was kind of exciting. But so I ended up running with that. And then I found out there's a number of things in Stoicism that, and many of which would surprise many people, that are important for high performance that that people might not suspect when they first read Stoicism. So that's why I'm really excited about my program, because it wasn't something, it was independent of my will, the way everything came together. And so that's one thing that's really having me excited about my program.
Yeah, when I heard Stoicism in reading about you and since I've known you, the posts that you make, you have a lot of Greek mythology with your post pitches and stuff of gods and things like this. And God is an important part of my life every morning. I mean, my spiritual life is the most important thing in my life. And the Stoicism part of it is such an important, because when I hear the word Stoicism, I feel like you've got to be a tough person to get through, the other side of if you're trying to be successful as an entrepreneur. It's going to take you're going to have to take some pain. You're going to have to take some struggles. You're going to have to deal with adversities, and without complaining, you're going to have to just keep going. And your mindset, it's such an important part. It's like 80% of it.
Well, no, I agree with that, because just keeping going, especially when things are looking bad, especially when things aren't going your way, especially when you've had a few setbacks, that is all important. And if we could just have one mental quality to succeed, if we could just get perseverance magically, that would be the thing to get. But perseverance is made up of a bunch of other little things.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that's very interesting about Stoicism, because yes, the Stoic would say, well, tough it out for the circumstance, but actually they do give specific techniques and ways of seeing things to help you. So one quick point, for example, most people say, here's how I want things to go. And then we don't want to think about setbacks and adversities. But Stoicism looks at the overall picture of life and says, no one is free of these. right? So even the richest, most powerful person, something tragic can happen to their child, or they can be betrayed in a horrifying way that most of us aren't, because of the stakes are so high in their situation. So the Stoic approach is to say, it's what I call future factoring. Let's just start with, okay, today I'm going to have some obstacles. Within this month or so, I'm going to have a setback where I think it's over. And then maybe within a half a year, I will have something that most people would consider an adversity. So rather than saying, oh, no, I don't want to think about that, I just want positive thinking. No, what I really want is positive thinking, which is even of this kind of Stoic thinking. Even if these should happen, I am equipped by my human nature, by my experience, by my native intelligence, to make the most out of all these situations. So then it becomes, in a way, an interesting thing that happens. Oh, here's my latest obstacle. I didn't expect that one. Let's see how I can do. And the Stoics would definitely agree with seeing all these things as a game, not worrying so much about the external results. Am I a millionaire? Am I a billionaire? And things like that. Am I famous? Do I have 1 million followers? But rather saying, okay, looking at the process and seeing what's the real terrain of it, and then factoring that in. And some part of toughness will surprise a lot of people, but I know that you know it well. There's a number of things that we could do with our thinking that are very, that some people just discover by living long enough and trying long enough. Sometimes it's just thinking differently about the situation, which many people know as reframing. That's one great Stoic technique to say, okay, this is happening, and then how should I think about it? So toughness isn't all just about something that people call grit. I'm just going forward. I'm going to be tough. There's a number of things that can be used in terms of your thinking in order to deal with whatever comes along. And then what happens to most people is, after they endure the setbacks and adversities, they look back at it and they say, oh, that wasn't as big a deal as I thought. Right. It's such a common experience, but the mistake most people make is they're a little surprised by it because they think, oh, I got past all the obstacles. No, there will be something new, and it's going to be unexpected. so you could probably do hours on that.
Yeah.
But so the ideas that Stoicism brings to it are a little surprising, just based on let's say the popular image of it. But it's all in there if you read some of the major Stoic works, such as Marcus Aurelius's Meditations and Seneca's Letters. So
very cool. I knew you were a great fit for the Fighting Networker. Let me go on to this next one. You mentioned adversity. In adversity, I mean, it's part of everyone's life, but adversity and resilience. Adversity is part of every entrepreneur's journey. How does Stoicism provide practical tools to navigate challenges and build resilience to face setbacks?
Well, one of the key things is this also adds to why somebody might be more interested in the latest obstacle, setback, or adversity, rather than frightened by it. Yes, you do want to see it as a challenge, but one thing that the Stoics are very clear about, and that is one of the things besides the right thinking the right thoughts, doing the right things every day, changing your perspective over time. One of the things that they hold as very important is it's actually going through all these difficulties that actually forms your character. And interestingly, the Stoics say, for anything that's in existence, including ordinary objects like a table or a chair or the human body, what puts these into good condition is tension. They call it tonos. So they believe that someone who is an Olympic athlete has undergone enough physical tension
Right.
to be an excellent athlete, and they say the human psyche is the same exact way. So this is a beautiful bonus and would actually make many people excited about their next setback. Okay, an adversity, it's hard to get too excited about that. But with some practice, you can say, okay, this is my time to stick to my guns. And if you're an entrepreneur, to say, everything's going wrong. I've been denied, let's say, loans by 10 banks and time's running out to pay rent or whatever. That's actually the time where you're going to say, now I really have to hold my center in terms of my thinking, my psyche, and take these ons. And then the reward is that you're raising the tension of your psyche, and they regard that as a good thing. You're actually giving a workout to your mind. So that's why people who've been in business a long time, if they have a setback, and if we compare it to someone who's a beginner, that's why they don't panic during it. And besides knowing the practicalities of, okay, so what is my next move? It's also that they're conditioned to be through this. So I think one of the expressions about this is, I've been through that rodeo before, this rodeo before. And so it doesn't seem as much of a big deal. And so I think that's an important one, especially for new entrepreneurs, to see all the things that are keeping you up at night, all the things that make you wake up and you're filled with a lot of anxiety. Start to see that as a necessary part of the process and say, well, is anything threatening me right now? Is there anything in which my life is at stake? And they can say, obviously, no. And then say, okay, so what can I really do with the next hour? What's the most productive thing I can do? And a lot of times, I think brainstorming can be very fruitful. And if you do that just for an hour and write down a bunch of things, then your perspective changes. You see, okay, I just thought of a bunch of things I could do that I didn't think about. And that's actually what caused the anxiety. Right. Coming at it from a limited perspective, but you can open up your perspective at any time by some rational thinking and letting your and so here's another thing. This is actually from performance psychology. It's supported by studies that they've done. How you frame a stressful situation will determine not only how you respond to it, but also the physiological effects that you will have. So in other words, there's no necessity in human psychology of stress causing anxiety. That's something we bring to it with the way we frame things, but it's completely open up to us to say, oh, this is kind of exciting. This is a little adventure. I'm going to see this as a challenge, and so then you'll be much better at getting through it than someone who goes with the first thought they have about it. And that's the kind of thing, that's what really overwhelms us, the way we're thinking about it. And we have the resources within us to handle all kinds of situations that surprise even us when we get through them.
Very nice. That leads me right to the next question I want to ask. Mindset and perception. The Stoic philosophy emphasizes the power of our perceptions and thoughts. How can entrepreneurs adopt Stoic principles to cultivate a mindset that fosters clear thinking and effective decision making? Because people get messed up when they get all emotional. They make wrong decisions from a position of weakness.
Well, and by perception, you mean kind of how the mind is seeing it?
Yes, yeah. And that mindset, how important is that mindset in our perception? It's like we want to adopt this way of thinking so it becomes ours.
Right. And so I would, so the perception you want is, and so this is the way I would see it, because Stoicism goes deeper and wider than most personal development, because they usually don't give you a view of what's the nature of the universe, right, or what is human nature. And so, and I do think some of the things that, but I would say that if you read a lot of personal development, some of the same topics are touched upon here and there, such
Yeah.
as the issue of Robert Ringer gave a great exercise for this, which is, okay, how many years, how old are you? And what is life expectancy now, right? So let's say it's 79 years old and you're 29, do the math and see how many years you have left, how many months, how many days, and you'll see, okay, that's not that many. I don't have that much time. That gives you a little perspective of how to look at, okay, well, I don't have that much time, and that can sometimes give someone a better perspective of, how to deal with the situation. Another one is that people talk about in Stoicism a lot, has to do with the fact that you're going to die. So the program that we have on Earth, we only have so much time, right? So let's say 79 years is the average in our country, and so, but another thing to think about with regard to this is the fact that 100 years after we die, who will know about the thing that I'm experiencing right now? And as a matter of fact, most people, even in your life, even if they hear about it, they won't really understand it. It's a kind of situation you're on your own, which is the case for most things that we experience is very horrible in life. So that shows you that from the cosmic perspective, it's not that big a deal at all. And so one of the tips I would give people to gain that perspective, and this is what I tell my clients, I want you to read 15 minutes of Stoicism a day. Don't worry if you're understanding it all. Don't worry if you are, after a couple months, you're not mastering it. But over time, you start to see that, so they get into these topics a great deal. And so then it starts to become a part of your mindset without you necessarily having to say, I am going to adopt this mindset, because, like I said before, most of us don't like to think about adversities, death, and so forth. But if you're reading a couple times something about death, and then you start to say, well, yes, it is going to happen, that can give you a much better perspective to say, okay, what I'm experiencing now isn't that big a deal. 100 years from now, most people won't know I exist, right? So some family members maybe. And so, it's your situation. Even though it's only your situation, it's also a great opportunity for you to do what you really want with it. And that's another point that Stoics stress. No one can stop you from using your mind the way you want to. No one can stop you. So that means if you want to develop a stronger mindset, one better oriented toward success, better oriented toward dealing with whatever happens, that's up to you, and no one can stop you from doing that. And so, as we would say, the ball's in your court.
Yes, very good. And by the way, I want to live to 89, so I hope I get longer than the average.
I hope so too. Having a good mindset, not getting overwhelmed by stress. In other words, seeing it as a challenge. It could even excite you to say, okay, let's go for it. No one's going to care 100 years from now. And even if I mess it up, those kinds of things free you to perform at your best.
Oh, that's great. Dr. David Casper, I appreciate that. I've got a couple more questions. This is good. It's all good, the time and everything else.
Sure.
It's about handling success and handling failure. Both Stoicism has, how does having that Stoic mindset help you to handle and be humble through your successful time and be able to handle the challenges of failing? I mean, that humility part in Stoicism is what I'm after.
Well, they have in some respects, many people would consider a radical view of value. So what we talked about before, virtue, they claim that's the only good thing. And they say something like wealth having a great reputation, and what we would consider success, they would say, well, those have some value, but really they make no difference to your happiness. That all comes from the state of your psyche, the state of your soul. If that's in good shape, then and as powerful as we described it, you're courageous, you are self-controlled, and you see anything that happens as being potentially a challenge. This can make me a stronger person. With those things in place, then you're going to see failure is not going to be as big a deal, because what you want to focus on is with what's within your power. And here's a little tip I like to give people to do this. And I call it a invincible objective. So Epictetus says, you can be invincible if you do not enter into any contest in which victory is not up to you. So here's, and this is a great way to deal with any kind of challenge you have in business, even if it's happening tomorrow. So here's an invincibility objective. It's, okay, so I'm going to ask for a raise. I'm gonna ask my boss for a $20,000 raise. So my invincibility objective is, I'm gonna go into the office, I'm gonna make an appointment, I'm gonna ask my boss, I'm gonna explain, here's why I'm worth that amount. And then I'm going to let my boss respond to what I say. And I'm going to either say yes, no, or could I think about it overnight? And so everything in that objective is within my power, and then see what happens, the external thing, that's neither good nor bad. And even if it's not the outcome I wanted, I find, okay, I can be proud of what I did. I took the step. I had the guts to do it. Even if my boss thinks I'm overshooting what I'm worth, my boss will respect me more. So I've changed my relationship in the office. So an invincibility objective, yes, the objective would be, I want the raise, but the invincibility objective is, I'm going to ask for it. And then you frame it in such a way that that's all I'm counting on doing, what's within my power. And so then what people experience is they say, I actually did that. I'm proud of myself, and that was worth it. I knocked on 100 doors and I only got 5 sales, but I asked 100 people, and I'm proud of myself for that. That's what people discover when they do that. So then you start to see whatever happens as an external event as being less important. Now on the success point, so that success is also an external thing. So we make it very important, but the Stoic view is consistent, which is, yes, I want that outcome, but if I do get that outcome, that's not the most important thing in life. The most important thing is what I'm thinking, the state of my psyche, the state of my soul, and what I do. So success is interesting because many people become successful, the wind is at their back, and so what happens is they say, oh, everything's all going according to plan, and that is great, but that's a good time to be very careful and stick to what's important, which is my thoughts, the way I see things, and my actions, because if you ride out that success and get comfortable, reality has a way of punishing you for that. And so I think it's pretty interesting that the people that are the very highest performers, such as Michael Jordan, he's famous for winning the NBA championships, and then he says to his trainer, let's start tomorrow, because he doesn't want to drown in champagne and have even a week-long party, because he loses his edge from that. And so that is an extreme. I would say I don't think there's anything wrong with having a little, maybe 3 days, 4 days celebration, but you should say, okay, what am I going to do next? because they have shown through people that have done extraordinary things like going to the moon, winning the Olympics, winning in their field in the Olympics. They've shown that a lot of people become depressed after that because what can they do afterward? So I think it's really intelligent if you say, if you at least have an idea, what's my next project? And then when you do have some success, say, okay, this is great. And I'm not saying it's necessarily good to be acting out of desperation for the next level, but just, okay, what am I going to do next? Let's carry on with the next project. And there is a certain sense in which you could experience satisfaction in what you've done, but I think, and the Stoics the ancients were great about this. Handling success, they regarded as much of a challenge as handling failure, and you could just see it on the news. You could see it in the people that are in sports that they're getting accused of a crime. They're under arrest. They're getting dumped by the team because of their behavior. So and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about Stoicism. Says, let's look at the whole terrain of life and see what are things really like. And the track record of someone being successful and then coasting to the end of their life, I don't even know if there's any examples of that happening. So just try to look over the whole landscape of life and see, okay, what really makes the most sense out of everything we've learned if you want the most obvious example of this, there's an old show that used to be on TV called Behind the Music on, was it VH1? An old show. They're on YouTube.
Sure.
Watch Behind the Music. What happens to the rock star, right? They're riding at the top. They're getting everything they want, and then oftentimes within less than a year, they're undergoing a divorce. They're in rehab. They've lost everything. So all the warnings are out there. Listen to all the people. Watch all the people that went before you, and try to say, okay, what makes the most sense? And I think the Stoics say, what you're thinking, how you're seeing things, and what you're doing, if you just keep focusing on that, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's great. Dr. David Casper, I appreciate you very much. Are there any exercises, practical exercises, Stoic exercises that the entrepreneur could add to their daily routine to enhance their performance? Okay.
So in terms of enhancing the performance, there are a couple exercises that I think are very important, and I'm going to give you one that it's something I came up with, something I discovered, and I call it a power state. So this is what you should do in the first thing in the morning. And there's a bunch of different ideas about morning routines. And if it works for you, that's great. But I think this recommendation would be great for entrepreneurs, because what it does is it takes the kind of situation we were talking about earlier, which is things are going wrong. I'm waking up. I have growing debts. I have creditors. I have to get some more customers. So this, what I call a power state, is taking different states of mind that are valuable for performance and then stacking them together. So here's one thing that I would recommend people do before they start doing their business work in the morning. So something basic like grabbing a cup of coffee, maybe a little stretching, or breakfast, and then heading right to the work desk. And so here's what I found here's what a power state is. So the first step, and each step is only 30 seconds. The first step is, I call the allowing step, which is you open up your mind, and then whatever you're thinking, you're allowing that to come in. And so that's going to include, I'm scared about what's going on. And if you have negative self-talk, you allow that. So your mind's going, I suck, you're not going to make it, whatever it is. And then as it's coming in, you're allowing it. And then the second the second stage, the second state to undergo is, and so with each one you step forward as a signal to your brain that this is a different step, a different state. And then the second one is surrender to what is, meaning surrender to the whole universe, meaning your soul, your psyche, and just say, I am not asking anything of the universe except I'm allowing my mind to be however it is in relation to the entire universe. And so what happens in this surrender is you're not trying to force anything on the world. Right. You're not saying it has to be this way. And so you could put it in terms of surrender to God. And so it's a way of acceptance, but surrender is a little more, acceptance sometimes puts you at some remove from it. So, okay, I accept, I'm afraid, I accept, but this is kind of total acceptance, wholehearted acceptance, you could put it that way. And so that's number two. And then when you do this, oftentimes your perspective will change and you'll see even the things that were scaring you a minute ago, they're not scaring you as much. Even the things where you're saying, I totally suck, you're in a way, you don't see it that way because your perspective is vast, it's universal.
Sure.
The third phase is what I call aspire, and you pick your favorite entrepreneur, Steve Jobs, Rockefeller, or some figure that you admire. So Socrates, Winston Churchill, whoever it is, maybe it's your dad. And so you picture that person for the 30 seconds doing what you're going to have to do. And then what you do is by the end of the 30 seconds, so you have a bunch of work, you have a bunch of phone calls to make, you picture your hero doing those. And then at the end of the 30 seconds, you're kind of merging with that person, meaning that's what I'm going to do today. That's how I want to be. Number 4, and there's only 2 more. So number 4 is set your intention for the day. And what I found is, okay, I'm going to do some great work for my business today in the next hour, right? I'm going to do the most important things in my business. That's my intention. And so this part sounds a little complicated, but I'll just lay it out for you. And I found this to be very effective. So I'm going to say 4 things. I'm going to have a great hour of doing my business work. Always act with effective ease. I'm going to enjoy this work hour to the fullest. And then lastly, I'm going to get everything I want out of it unless something happens, right? So I'm going to convince the next person on the phone for a bank loan, right? Unless something happens. And that unless something happens is important because oftentimes something does happen, but I'm doing my best. I'm saying it's a done deal unless the universe doesn't want it to happen. So just to review it again quickly. So I'm going to have a great work hour, always act with effective ease. I'm going to enjoy this work hour to the fullest, and I'm going to get that loan unless something happens, right? Or I'm going to write a great 2 pages for my novel, or I'm going to do a great outline in 1 hour unless something happens. So then 5, and 5 is crucial, and it's a little unusual, but I consider 5 is the state here we're going for is play. And so this is random. This is silly. This is, if you're into rock, okay, you could be playing air guitar. So you could be doing a bizarre kind of dance. You're just freeing up the mind to improvise. And so you're relieving yourself of the pressure of something rigid, right? I have to do this or whatever. So all this information is going into your brain in that order. And so the last stage, you're making funny faces, you're dancing around, you're jumping around for 30 seconds, you're making strange movements with your neck, whatever it is, you're just showing your through your physiology. I'm not it's not serious. There's going to be some improvisation, some play here. And so then that together gives you a power state And then when you do that, you're going to perform at a better level than you would have if you just sat down.
Oh, this is great. You know, when you were talking, like, it just reminds me how important that, what you just covered, how important that, I can feel it already. It releases stress when you do that. And that stress is so important. It releases any feelings of fear or worry or anxiety when you follow that exercise. And I appreciate that very much. Is there any links or anything you'd like to talk about, promote, anything you have available for our listeners if they want to join you, or is anything you'd like to pass on? Please do that, and we'll make sure that that link is going to be put into the description and stuff like that.
Okay, sure. So the best, the place that I am most of the time, as you know, is my group, Stoic Practices for Success. And to get to that, the link is in one word, highperformancestoicism.com. And that will lead people to my Facebook group. And I'm happy to have you as a member. And I'm happy to have any of your listeners as members.
Yeah, that's great. And again, this will go up not only on my podcast, will you repurpose this, we'll put this up on my YouTube channel. And you're helping me tremendously by doing this, Dr. David Casper, PhD from New York, New York. How's New York today? Was it pouring buckets there or what?
It was raining a little, but we're getting a little sunshine. So
okay. So yeah, today we got blasted. I'm in New Hampshire, and we have had so much rain here over the last 2 months. It's just unbelievable. And you're only 5-6 hours away.
That's right.
Yeah. But it's funny how the weather can change just 20 minutes away. You know, we have stuff going on here, and over there it's nice and sunny. But that's the beauty of what we do here. It's the greatest thing. You could be anywhere in the world, and we can be talking on a video call. I love technology.
The benefits are definitely there. And so I'm glad to be on the show. And thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I hope everyone enjoyed it. And this show is officially over. Thank you so much, Dr. David Casper, and we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.